Shapeshifting is the ability to undergo a drastic change in appearance. These entities have been a staple in many myths and legends found in every corner of the world, so the question I have is, could they possibly be real? You may be quick to think they don't exist, but with so many stories about them, you have to entertain the fact that perhaps in some form they do, and that what they are exactly is something that we just don't understand. As strange as it may seem, the possibility of their existence is real, which we'll dive into in today's episode. Here are 5 real freaky, shape-shifting creatures. Number 5. Selkie. The Scots and the Irish are 2 branches of the Celtic family. Despite their close ties, they have a long history of conflict that went on for a period of several thousands of years. But if there is a thing that they agree on together, it's their mutual curiosity of the Selkies. The Selkie is a marine legend that tells of people who are half fish, half human. Also known as the Seal People, Selkies are basically seals when in the water, but when on land they take on a human form. They shapeshift by shedding their seal skin. It's risky though, because should they wish to return to their seal form, they must reapply the same skin that they shed. Stories surrounding the Selkies are usually romantic tragedies. This is because they are irresistible to ordinary humans who find their beauty beguiling and enchanting. One of the many famous legends about these shapeshifters is that of Thady Rue O'Dowd, a clan chieftain in Ireland. Before assuming position at his tribe, he had to fulfill a task of finding himself a bride. Apparently, looking for a suitable wife proved more difficult than he realized. And to clear his head of the matter, he went out walking on the beach one night. Suddenly, out from the distance, Thady saw a beautiful maiden combing her hair along the shore. She was fully undressed, but the onlooker noticed a magical cape or coat placed next to her. Of course, all of Ireland knew about the magical sea people, and the oncoming chieftain was no different. Realizing this, he then snuck up beside her and quickly snatched up what was supposed to be her Selkie cloak. He then hid it from her sight, all the while professing his love for the mermaid called Eve. Without her fishtail now, Eve had no choice but to marry her unlikely suitor, and so the two lived on and raised together 7 children. Despite being already accustomed to human living, Eve still has this longing for the sea. The legend goes on to tell that though Thady had carefully hid his wife's Selkie cloak, one of his children was able to find it. And this child told his mother about the bag of gold where the magical skin was supposedly contained. Eve picked up on the information, and indeed, it was the fishtail that her husband had long kept from her. With this in hand, the Selkie didn't hesitate to put it back on, transforming once again into what she really wanted to be. Going back to the ocean for good was a problem though, since she had her kids and could only carry 2 in her arms. So what she did was turn 5 of them into rocks, and then she swam off into the waves with those that remained. The legend of the Selkies has endured over the ages, and though it's grown quite less, rumor has it that there are still sightings made even in modern times. Number 4. Neko and Nekomata. In Japan, Neko translates to monster cat or ghost cat, and these all allegedly began as regular domestic cats. However, as these got older, they changed, not only in physical form, but also in their personalities as well. Their shift starts with them walking on their hind legs, and as time passes, their size increases to the extent that they reach human height. At this point, they now have the ability to transform into any person, though they very much prefer to disguise themselves as their owners. As part of their strange facade, they would sometimes wrap a towel around their head and dance around merrily, and some Bakanekos could even speak human languages. This supposedly would enable them to utter and bring down sinister curses onto their masters. These troublemakers also have the ability to summon ghostly fireballs and start house fires by using their tails as torches. Like necromancers, the back of Neko also has the disturbing ability to reanimate fresh corpses and use them as puppets, which would help them further their nefarious plans. There's another version of this monstrous cat in Japanese legends known as the Nekomata. Nekomatas are essentially back in Neko's eviler cousin. Their origins are the same, domestic cats growing and learning to become humans. However, the Nekomata is a yokai that had once lived among humans but was driven away into the mountains. Once transformed, they would go back into civilization to exact their revenge. Accounts from witnesses supposedly mention these felines having the eyes of a cat and a body as large as a dog. Though their description makes them appear tame, their behavior suggests otherwise, as they're said to attack people, even kill them if they see fit. It gets worse if humans would dare trespass into their mountain dwellings, and the tales indicate that these people would be attacked, killed, and oftentimes eaten by the Nekomatas. It's said that since they were humans at first, they have a more refined skill to speak languages, which enables them to blackmail and even enslave their victims. Fear for both the Nekomata and Bakaneko prompted ancient Japanese people to put down their cats before they reached the age of 10, and they do so in an attempt to stop their transformations. However, some believe that the murder of a cat can bring misfortune and even put a curse on a family. So instead, it's become common practice to bob young cats' tails, since they thought that this part of their body was the source of their mystic powers. The enduring legends of the Nekomata and Bakaneko perhaps serve as a warning for everyone to always treat your pet cats with kindness and the love that they deserve. Otherwise, one day they could come back to haunt or even kill you. Number 3. Tayanak Babies. Who can resist these little humans? They're so small, so precious, and so sweet, even the ones who tend to cry often. But what if instead of joy and euphoria, these tiny tots bring something much worse? The Filipinos from the Philippines know for sure to be wary when holding babies, because they might not be what they appear. Some are normal, others could be baby devils that they call the Tayanak. Also called the Impacto, these mythical creatures are babies who supposedly died before receiving baptism rites. After their death, they go to a place known among the Catholics as purgatory or limbo, a chamber found somewhere between heaven and hell. If there's not enough prayers made for them, these entities would eventually become evil spirits. They would then return onto the land of mortals as evil goblins. Some sources say a Tayanak can also be the offspring between a woman and a demon. Regardless, though, of how they came to be, the way they wreak havoc is as terrifying as their nature. The hauntings would begin with a person hearing a baby crying in the woods. People in the rural areas knew better to avoid checking it out, but a soft-hearted individual could sometimes be lured by this little devil. The feeling of pity and love would prompt the unsuspecting victim to take the child into his or her arms and carry them back home. It was then too late for them to realize that the baby that they were carrying had already transformed into something very hideous. What once was a baby is now a monster with long claws, razor-sharp fangs, blooded, piercing eyes, and emaciated skin like that of an old man. The shock upon seeing this monster would probably stun anyone, so much so that it would be impossible to react when it began to bite its prey, suck its blood, and then later on eat the internal organs. Locals would suggest turning the clothes you're wearing inside out in order to break free from the Tayanak's enchantment. Regardless, the thought that there exists a creature who looks like an innocent baby during the day and then turns into a bloodthirsty monster at night is terrifying. Number 2. Encantado. Contrary to popular belief, not all dolphins live in the salt waters of the sea. Some species can actually live in freshwater. In South America's Amazon River, there exists a pink-colored bottlenose dolphin, which is simply called the Amazon dolphin. But its peculiar color is not the only thing that makes this creature intriguing. Rather, it's the legends that surround these aquatic mammals. In Brazilian folklore, there's what is known as the Encantado. This mythical creature is supposed to be a shapeshifter that lives in a deep underwater realm called the Encante. One particular tale says that their transformation takes place at night during the Fiesta Junina, or the feast days of St. Anthony and John the Baptist, which falls during the full moon. It's then that the Encantado emerges from the water on human legs, and as he draws near to the riverbank, he would completely transform into a human. Everything would look normal, except that they would always have a blowhole at the top of their head, and for this reason, they usually wear hats to cover the imperfection. Surprisingly, an Encantado, or sometimes called a Bodo, are not necessarily considered evil in these stories. Apparently, their insatiable desire to experience the human world is what drives them to transform and visit riverside communities. Mingling with people poses no difficulty for them. Their superior musical ability and undeniable seductiveness basically makes them the life at anyone's party. But joining revelries wouldn't be the only thing that they want to do once on land. Being very sociable, their goal is also to find a woman to seduce and eventually impregnate. If successful, the female would later give birth to a baby, and though the child appears human, it would eventually turn into an Encantado when it reached the age of 6. By then, he or she will have to join his fellow Encantados back in the river. As fantastical as it may seem, the stories about Encantados were supposed to be used as a way to justify unexplainable pregnancies among women. As such, if a girl gets pregnant but none of the men in town takes responsibility, it would then be assumed that a dolphin or an Encantado had impregnated her. Number 1. Incubus, Succubus. Known by their many names, cultures from around the world have spoken of vampire-like demons that feed off of human energy and attack their victims while they're asleep. They're called an incubus and a succubus, and, as what you might have heard of them, these entities can get very sinister. First off, an incubus is a male form of a demon believed to assault women, mostly in their sleep. Depending on accounts, most victims may wake up during the rape, while some won't know what happened until their health suddenly deteriorates. At this point, they now become host to the creature's parasitic baby. The female version of an incubus is a succubus. As weird as it may sound, these demons seek out and visit men, also at night, to have themselves get impregnated by them. Considering these similar intentions, many believe that an incubus and a succubus could be one and the same. They just possess the ability to switch between male and female forms, thus making them shapeshifters. And their transformation abilities are not limited to gender change only. Some legends indicate that they can also take on a human form. In order to look however they like, the demon has to reanimate corpses or use human flesh. With their demonic powers, they can take over anyone they like, alive or dead, to make themselves glamorous as they'd like, and thus make themselves appear desirable to whomever their victim is. In Europe, places like Germany, these incubuses and succubuses are referred to as Alp. These are vampire-like creatures who visit their victims at night, and they can be recognized by the cape they wear, which is supposedly imbued with dark magic. In Hungarian folklore, they have the lidurk, which literally means satanic lover. They have human bodies, but when they walk, they leave the footprints of a horse. The tokoloshe is another variant mentioned in South African folklore. They are small, supernatural beings who rape women and sometimes bite off children's toes while they're sleeping, which would explain why you always have to have your feet under the covers at night. But the most recognizable and perhaps the basis of many representations of the incubus succubus is the Mar of the Norse folktales. The Mar is a demonic entity that sits on top of a sleeping person's chest, causing them nightmares. Some may survive, but others may perish and not make it to the next day. From an anthropologist's point of view, these legends came to the fore in an attempt to provide an explanation for what we now call sleep paralysis. Yet for others, these sex-crazed demons remain to be supernatural spirits who know nothing but to cause misery in our lives. Do you guys like horror movies?
You're up. Great. How are you feeling? I said, how are you feeling?
Do you guys like scary mysteries?
Can I use the bathroom? It's been a long drive.
It's over there.
Thank you.
I'll get some chips.
Then check out the new movie that I directed and I wrote called An Angry Boy and join us for the exclusive online world premiere, which is only available through Kickstarter. Links are down in the description below.